número uno, que viva el son montuno, ritmo número uno, el son montuno.
In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to pronounce the Spanish alphabet. In my lesson, there are more letters than there are in your book on page 8. My lesson has 30 letters, and the one in the book only has 27. But we're going to go through all 30 of these letters, learn how to pronounce each letter, and learn some words in English that have those same pronunciations. The first letter in the alphabet is ah. When the doctor says stick out your tongue and say ah, that's called an ah. And it's pronounced like the O in pot. The second letter is bay, pronounced like the bay of pigs. And the B in then is pronounced like the B in boy. Boy. Not quite as much air as in English, but a B. The third letter is the say. Now, the say has two pronunciations. There is a hard C and a soft C. The hard C is like the C in cake, or the C here in circus. The soft C is like an S, like the first C in circus. Now, the reason that it's a soft C is it's followed by an E or an I. So a C followed by anything else gets a K sound, and a C followed by E or I gets an S sound. So here we have the two C's, circus or circus. The fourth letter in the Spanish alphabet is not in your textbook. It is in a lot of older dictionaries, and it's called the che, che, and it's pronounced like the CH in chair. The next letter is day, pronounced like a day of the week. And the letter D, or day in Spanish, is pronounced like the D in dog, dog. The next letter of the alphabet is A, like the letter E in English, but it's pronounced A in Spanish. And it's pronounced like the AY in day that we just mentioned here. A is the sound of this letter. The next letter is F, F, and it's pronounced like our F, like the F in fog. The next letter is the hey, pronounced like H-A-Y in English, or H-E-Y in English, hey. And the hey has two pronunciations. When it's followed by an E or an I, it gets an H sound, like in the word hen in English. So for example, in Spanish, this word that's pronounced general in English would be pronounced general, with the H like here in hen. The hard G, and that's a G that's followed by anything other than an E or I, is like the G in guitar, guitar. The next letter is H, like the letter H in English, it's pronounced H. The H in Spanish is silent. So for example, in this word, which is spelled the same in Spanish as in English, the H is silent. Instead of being hotel, it's hotel, and the H is silent. The next letter is the E, sometimes called the E Latina, or the Latin I. And it's pronounced like the long E in scene, scene. The next letter is the J, and it gets pronounced like our H in Spanish. For example, Hussein. This is common in Spanish names like Jose or Julio, but it's pronounced like the H in Hussein. The next letter is the K. Now, this isn't a common letter in Spanish. It's usually from a word that they borrowed from some other language. And some of the words that you might see it in might be measurements, like, for example, a kilogram. It's pronounced like that, K. The next letter is the L, pronounced like the L in listen, L, and it's pronounced like the L in listen. The next letter is not in your textbook, but again, it's in a lot of Spanish dictionaries, like the che that we looked at a moment ago. This is the A, and it's pronounced like a Y in English. Yolanda being an example of one pronunciation of a Y. Ella, pronounced like the Y in Yolanda. The next letter is the N, and that's pronounced like our English N, like in the word mom. The next one is the N, and it's pronounced like the English N, like in the word never. The next letter is the N. Now, of the letters in Spanish that are not in the English alphabet, this is the only one of them that your book chose to put in. But this is the ñ. It's pronounced like the Ni in onion. I've chosen a common Spanish word that most of you have heard of, piña colada. And the ñ is the niña sound, as in piña here. The next letter is the letter O, and it's pronounced like the long O in English, for example, in the word pope. The next letter is the P, and it's pronounced like the P in potato. The next letter is the Q. The English Q is called a Q in Spanish, and you hardly ever see that Q without a U after it. And the Q followed by a U gives you a hard K sound, like in the word king. The next letter is R, pronounced like the R in English. For example, this word would be radio in Spanish. The next letter is a double R, and this is where you roll your R's. Here I have a Spanish surname, Gutierrez. Gutierrez. You roll the R a little bit. Now, even a single R, like the one above this here, will be rolled at the beginning of a name, like, for example, Ramon. R-A-M-O-N would be Ramon instead of just Ramon. So here in the middle of this word, this is Gutierrez. The next letter is the S, and it's pronounced like the S in English. For example, the word sonar. And that's actually a word in Spanish. Sonar means to sound. And this letter is the T, pronounced like T-A-Y in English. And it's pronounced like the T in television, pretty much like the English T. The next letter is the ube. And, or oo, excuse me, this is ube here. This is oo, and it's pronounced like the double O in goose. This is a bay, sometimes called a ube, or a bay chica. It's like the English V, but it's pronounced like the B in Spanish. So this would be the pronunciation of V as in baker. The next letter is the W, or the ube doble, and it's not a common letter. It's like a K in Spanish. It's not very common. And in this case, it's pronounced like a W in the first W in Warsaw. The next letter is the X. And there are two common pronunciations of the X. For example, like in the English word example, or in the English word heavy. One word that has both of these pronunciations is the word Mexico, M-E-X-I-C-O. The common English pronunciation is like the X example, Mexico. But in Mexico or other Spanish-speaking countries, you might hear it pronounced with this H sound, and that would be Mexico. The next letter is the E, or the E griega, and it's both a vowel and a consonant. When it's a consonant, it's pronounced like the Y in Yolanda, the same as a double L earlier, the A. When it is a vowel, it's pronounced like the double E in B, E, which is like the letter I. And the last letter of the alphabet is Zeta. Now you'll hear various pronunciations of this, but the most common one is like a double S, as in the word Contessa. So this is the Spanish alphabet. As you can see, much of the alphabet is pronounced the same as in English. But some of the letters are different, and there are some extra letters that we don't have in English. Learning to pronounce these letters is the key to pronunciation in Spanish. And so you need to practice these. You can go back and watch this video over and over and listen to the pronunciations and practice them until you know how to pronounce each individual letter when you see it.